Gordhan.
Thank you, Chair. My apologies. Nature does call sometimes. Minister, thank you for being with us so late. In paragraph 2 of yours, not your first submission, the second one, you say, I have never consulted with anyone on my executive functions, not Tony Gupta or Salim Issa or anyone else. But, I mean, as fellow former colleagues, we know that we often consult with the President, and I'm sure you've consulted him. True?
True.
What sort of issues would you consult him on, and what instructions have you ever received from him?
Well, from the President, I have had a discussion on Eskom, especially around IP. Well, very recently, I've had a conversation with the President around IPPs. I've had a conversation with the President around a number of the issues that are in my portfolio. I also had a conversation quite recently with the President about the fact that we've got to look at the structure of Eskom.
Okay, but you haven't explored the famous 7th of March meeting that the President had, or rather, the one that Mr. Sotsi was invited to in Durban, where Ms. Mieni and her son gave instructions on who should be dismissed, how, and the fact that an inquiry should be pursued. You haven't asked the President, Mr. President, what was this meeting about? Why wasn't I there? Because you seem to be upset about the fact that you didn't know.
Well, I was a bit upset that I did. Well, I do feel a bit upset when I hear that people have been to the President and they're from my boards. And I think anybody would feel upset about it.
But you didn't raise it with him?
No, I didn't.
Why? I mean, if you're upset, you should sorry clarify. Why didn't you have me there, Mr. President?
But the meeting, I mean, I think Mr. Sotsi told you that story today. I haven't seen the President today.
Oh, you didn't see the President today. This is the first time you're hearing about the meeting. You know, as former activists, I think the country should know we were well trained, usually self-trained.
I apologize, Honorable Gordhan.
Yeah.
When you ask the question to the minister, I expect, and everybody expect the minister to respond to your question. Not everybody behind the minister to say yes when the minister has to say yes, and everybody else says yes. We expect the minister to speak for herself, not anybody. Please, please, please. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair. I think consistently, I think it was never done. I think it was by omission. Advocate Venara indicated, I think, to the previous witnesses that even the legal counsel, he can only advise whatever way on legal matters, but on factual matters, the minister must speak on her own. You see, and consistently, he has been writing notes to the minister on factual issues that are asked by members. And I think you must rein from the chair and probably give that guidance. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I didn't take note of that. Advocate Vanara, can you just clarify the issue of writing notes and the issue of actually the conversation between the legal person and the witness? Because to me, those are two different things. He can write notes and transfer them to the witness, but for as long as he is not interacting with what the legal the leader is getting in between the leader, the evidence leader, and the witness. Thank you very much. Advocate Vanara, I just want to clarify the issue of advice on pen and the advice that is verbal.
No, Chair, the witness is under oath. Yes, the witness can be assisted on a legal issue, but not on a factual matter. It doesn't matter whether it's in writing or there's whispering, but the witness on factual matters, and that's why the witness, and only the witness alone, takes the oath for affirmation.
Thank you very much. Honorable Gordhan, can you then continue with your
Chair,
questions?
can I just say that these are the notes that I received, and they say excellent. Is that good or bad?
It's bad in the sense that the preparation your counsel did for you is working, but we'll leave that for now.
I just wanted to say that it was
Well done, well performed.
that it wasn't information that was being handed to me from the chair.
So, Chair, we're going to add 3 minutes or 4 minutes to what I've got to say, but let me also add on the question of officials. Mr. Kreywagen across the table here has a perpetual smirk on his face, and there's a bit of grimacing every now and again. And I think officials are required to remain neutral. They're required to remain neutral. Tomorrow you can have another minister. Ask me. You see? So your job is to serve the public and the state, not a particular purpose. And you might not be too proud when the truth comes out as to what you have been serving. And the public is watching very keenly as to what's going on here. Just a bit of advice. And Minister, you mentioned 250 professionals in your department. Most of them are good, honest people. But I don't think any one of them wants to be part of state capture. And they would agree if they had a voice at this meeting. But leave that aside. The point I was making a little earlier, as activists, the public should know we were well trained, particularly by ourselves, by the way, and by the movement that we belong to survive interrogation by the security police. You know, that's pretty good, just for the record. Now, let's come back to this inquiry. On the question of board appointments, it's actually fascinating and intriguing. You have Ms. Karim, I think she's still currently on the board, who just happens to be a family member of Salim Issa. You previously and until recently had Mark Popensky, whose relationship to the Guptas and Issa are well known. You've had Ms. Naidu, who was here yesterday, and her husband is closely related to the Issas and Guptas. You have Mariam Qasim, who's I think still on the board, and she used to work for Sahara Computers. Mr. Ngubane, who used to be the previous chair of the board and a member of the board, I believe today is a partner of Mr. Issa in some or other business. And yet we, as the public and as Parliament, are expected to believe that this board is genuinely professional and goes through the processes of selection that have been indicated here. Now, what one would like to do, Chair, at some stage, if we had the time, is to actually call the officials concerned, to say, how are these shortlists, again, we're getting smiles and smirks there. How are these lists actually compiled? And how do all of these people suddenly get onto these lists in such an orchestrated, organized way as far as public analysis and perception is concerned? But you don't have to comment on that, Minister. What you do need to comment on is... Sorry? Yeah. No, I was just saying it for the record. Now, the suspension of Mr. Matona and company, you've addressed this several times. But what I'm really intrigued about is that this suspension of particularly the CFO and the CEO led to Eskom's downgrade. It led to its financial situation, in fact, deteriorating. You have no regrets to the fact that you agreed to these suspensions, retrospectively?
Let me just quickly speak about the board appointments, because I think...
And I said you didn't have to address it.
No, but I think I can't allow something to go factual.
It wasn't a question.
Ms. Karim is no longer on the board.
That's fine.
Mr. Pamensky is no longer... In fact, none of these people are on the board.
No, I
the
said
point
Mr.
is, I sent a letter.
I told you, no. Chair, your guidance, please. That wasn't a question to the minister. That wasn't a question to the minister. Address the questions you asked.
Honorable Gordhan, give the minister a chance to respond to your questions.
It wasn't a
Because
question.
now, sorry?
It wasn't a question.
It wasn't a question
No.
that he's answering.
No.
Honorable Minister, as per the oath, could you please answer the question directly?
Honourable.
So the question before the Minister, just to remind her, Chair, and we're taking up my time unnecessarily, is on the question, does she have any regrets retrospectively as a result of the suspension and eventual departure, except for Mr. Koko, of these officials? You had a downgrade and deterioration financially and otherwise in Eskom.
It's been one of 4 issues that has been the issues that Eskom has been downgraded on.
Honorable members, please.
The one issue was and there were 3 other issues that Eskom was downgraded on. In fact, Eskom was downgraded on its financial instability as well at the time. So it didn't deteriorate. In fact, the point about Eskom was that immediately after that, a little while after that, I gave the date earlier, 23 billion rand came from National Treasury that actually, not came from National, came from Vodacom shares being sold, was actually...
Came from government, just to help you.
Was actually, no, it was actually shares that were sold.
Government shares.
Government, yes, government shares that were sold in Vodacom. So, I feel that Eskom actually strengthened after that. As we speak, even though the liquidity position of Eskom is very weak, and it's a number of issues that's weakened Eskom, the matter before us, and at the time, when the board came, it was part of strengthening Eskom. And I was happy and I was satisfied with the fact that Eskom was strengthened.
On it seems in October 2017, the acting CEO that you appointed, Mr. Dladla, suspended certain officials implicated in the so-called trillion payments. And suddenly, Mr. Dladla is sent back to his old job. The policy of rotating CEOs comes into place, and a very inexperienced person, Sean Maritz, becomes the CEO. Firstly, if you're looking for stability, even in a relative sense, why would you agree to a policy of rotating CEOs, acting CEOs? And why was Mr. Dladla victimized?
Well, I don't know if Mr. Dladla was victimized. I don't think he was victimized. I think Mr. Dladla came in as a acting CE, and when the board wanted to rotate Mr. Dladla, they did so, and I supported that at the time.
No, Mr. Dladla wasn't rotated. Mr. Dladla was appointed the acting CE, as I understand it. Somewhere, and when his departure was announced, the policy of rotation was announced at the same time.
There is no policy of rotation.
The board announced that they now are going to rotate acting CEOs.
The board is going to rotate acting CEOs while we don't have a CE, so that it gives opportunity, and this is what the board has told me, and I think it's quite okay. The board said that they want to rotate their executives to ensure that many of them get an opportunity to lead the company.
Okay, on the matter of Denel, you gave your own version of the matter. I want to refer to the affidavit submitted by the former Director General of the National Treasury, Mr. Fuzile, in the court action, which is very interesting, a violation of Chapter 3 of the Constitution, initiated by Denel against the Treasury. And this affidavit makes reference to a meeting on the 27th of January 2016, and I have the affidavit in front of me, held between National Treasury officials, the applicant, which means Denel, and DPE, in which it is recorded in 19.2 of the affidavit that DPE mentioned that the business case of Denel was weak. All right, so you actually had consensus. The second point that's made here is quite interesting. for the public to know that in a matter where the Minister of Public Enterprises, Ms. Brown, actually said to Danielle there are certain conditions that they have to put in place, that in the court action itself, Ms. Brown is not included as a respondent. Now, you accept these things as a fact, that your department actually felt that the case was weak?
Well, that's hearsay to me. My department compiled the memo that I read. The department doesn't tell me in the memo. They tell your DG at the time that the case is weak. That's hearsay as far as I'm concerned. I receive a memo that says...
Who's hearsay?
It's your hearsay. I'm
reading from an affidavit.
Well, I haven't seen it.
No, we're going to make it available to you. I'm sure your staff can make it available. So your only problem is that you haven't seen it. But it could well be true.
No, that's not my only problem, Mr. Gordhan.
What is the problem?
Mr. Gordhan, my department actually provides me with a memo.
Right.
And the memo comes from the department, from the unit. It is signed off by... Generally, it's signed off by the unit itself, which is the manufacturing unit in this case, which would be the unit that is responsible for negotiating with your department. That's what I assume.
Department now, unfortunately.
Well, your previous department.
Right.
Then it would go to our legal and governance unit.
I don't want to know the process. I want to know why you call it
I would like you to hear the process, because that process happens. So the whole department gets involved in sending a memo to me. I get a memo that says that these are all the factors before me, and we think that this is a good proposal. I give it to my advisors look at it, and they say yay or nay. So I did give them conditions. One of the conditions was due diligence had to be done. The other condition was that it had to be a sustainable company. And it's a whole number of issues around it.
And the fact that Mr. Salim Issa was the principal involved in VR laser didn't quite matter in this?
The chap, Mr. Salim Issa, actually worked in Denau for more than 7 years.
No, I don't want to know his history. I'm actually not interested.
Well,
I'm asking you,
that was
Chair,
actually the reason I supported it.
There's a simple question, ma'am. The question is, the fact that Mr. Salim Issa was principal in VR laser was not of consequence to you?
No, it wasn't of consequence.
Honorable members, can both of you be very patient to each other? Give each other a chance to respond. Honorable Gordhan, give the minister a chance to respond. Honorable Minister, give Honorable Gordhan a chance to question completely.
Right, let's move on.
Completely.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you seem to have a problem with chairpersons, except for Mr. Khoza. We haven't heard anything yet of Eskom. You've just earlier on dismissed everything Mr. Sotsi said to us. In your comments and in the paper we have in front of us, you've accused Eskom of withholding information, not being frank with you, but that was at a time when Mr. Ngubane, or Dr. Ngubane was the chair. Is there some pattern here in terms of relationships between chairpersons of Eskom and yourself?
No.
So why don't you get along with the chairs, the two previous ones?
Who were Ngubane and Khoza?
No, Khoza is there, sitting at the back.
No,
Sotsi.
No, in fact, it's not true that I've not gotten along with him. I do have a robust relationship with the chairs, and I think I will continue to do so.
No, but you earlier in your statement said Eskom deprived you of information, this, that, and the other. All of us heard it, the public heard it. So somewhere along the line, your relationship with Dr. Ngubane, for example, seems to have slided a bit. That's the perception you've left us with.
Oh, I'm very sorry that I left you with that perception. The issue is that I do have a problem, and I think you've also heard it here. I've read one or two affidavits from previous board members that some of the information is kept away from us, and I do make that statement.
So
but it doesn't say anything about the chairperson or my relationship with the chairperson. It says something about the opaqueness or non-transparency of the company.
So, two last points, Chair. The first, Minister, you would want us to believe that you are a fervent opponent of corruption in any form.
I am.
Okay. The locomotives deal in Transnet, where Mr. Issa and company walk away with, what, 10 million for every 50 million rand locomotive. Did you look into that matter?
Werksman is looking into that matter at the moment. In Transnet, I don't have a very good knowledge of it. It happened a little bit before my time, but Werksman is looking at it at the moment. But it's also one of the issues that I've put into the SIU.
So, Chair, finally, it seems what we are confronted with is denial, denial, denial. But just one other point. Several of the colleagues made reference to the Guptas, you kept using the word blacklisting, which is the word Mr. Molefe seemed to have used yesterday, so it's an interesting coincidence. But you're aware, Minister, that in terms of the procurement legislation, a company or entity can only be blacklisted once there's a court decision that that can be done. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
Right. And with the current affairs, or situation where we have state capture of, it is alleged, of even the prosecuting authority, you are not going to get a court decision because you're not going to get a prosecution. So you don't get any blacklisting.
I'm sure that's your opinion, Mr. Gordhan.
No, it is. I'm asking you whether you agree with me.
No, I don't agree with you.
No, I expected that. So,
by the way, I wasn't the one using blacklisting. I'm responding to Dr. Luyenge's comment about blacklisting.
But you mentioned the word that they were not blacklisted.
I find it very interesting that Mr. Molefe and I used the word blacklisting. I responded to Dr. Luyenge.
You might get another excellent note just now. So finally, Chair, whilst Mr. Shivambu, brings God into the picture, let me bring the public into the picture. So on the one side of the scale, we have all the coal purchase controversies, the IT systems controversies, boards that are dominated by Gupta-linked people, suspensions of officials who are actually innocent eventually, and the one who is actually implicated gets redeemed and comes back into Eskom. You have problems with chairs, particularly Mr. Sotsi. We have the articulation of Section 217 of the Constitution on procurement as an important value system, if you like, that we need to subscribe to, but everything that we do seems to be violating that systematically. We say that we want more black companies to actually benefit from deals that Eskom makes, and yet a prominent and fairly large black-listed company, Exaro, and I hope the evidence leader will bring us that evidence, is being victimized at the moment, according to the information that I have. You have the Denton's report, but the Denton's report was firstly locked up. Mr. Molefe doesn't read it, although he's the chief executive who should actually implement the Denton's report. You have the threat issued, inverted commas, to Mr. Sotsi. You have the 1.6 billion rand illegal guarantee given by the CFO of Eskom, Mr. Singh. You have the Donnell chair who actually attacked the National Treasury and the then minister publicly, but there was no reprimand. But it's not surprising because he's listed in the Gupta emails as well. You have the prepayment that Mr. Singh agreed to, which eventually was used to buy these optimum holdings of some 600 million rands. You have a fine of 2.1 billion rands, as we've heard, on that mine that's reduced to 600 million rands once the Tegeta takes over those mines. You have the locomotives deal. All of that is evidence on one side. And on the other side, as far as the public is concerned, all we have is denials. I end my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Gordhan. Now it's Honorable Teddy.
Chair, before Honorable Chair, can I go to the bathroom, please?
Agreed, Minister. You can go.
And Chair, maybe as an urgent issue. When I asked about Salim Issa earlier, she said she doesn't know him, but now she says he worked in Dinel for 7 years, and that was not solicited. I mean, what's happening? Can we get clarity whether she knows Salim Issa or not, so that we know which information to report?
Honorable Shivambo, Minister, the last time I checked on you, you were going to the loo. Please, can you go there?